Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 64 of the Lunch Bunch Show. Today, we're going to be talking about vanity, and I'm sure you're thinking this is all about you because what? You're so vain. Nope, it's not. It's about all of us and why we succumb to that sort of those seductive signals that say that we're great or we're really, doing our stuff really well. And so obviously, I'm going to be a success because I've got 1,000 followers on Facebook, and I get 1 million people on Twitter. So we're going to put a little pin in that bubble and ask the questions: are those things really important? Are the number of ones, plus ones, and likes and shares, things that you see on all those social signals, as it were, are they important? Are they an important metric to basically size up your success as a business, or should we be looking at other things like, I don't know, revenue? Conversions, people who go to your site and actually buy your product, and yeah, that's it, making money, if that's what you want to do. I mean, if you're in the game just to engage and get likes and get your ego stroked, maybe that's fine, but we're going to see. So we're going to be talking about vanity metrics, or before the online world, it was referred to as soft metrics. And I put an image in our event page from Brooke Ballard, who's a friend of ours, and she wrote an amazing article on it about what those things are. And actually, while we're here, I'm going to share that with you because I think it's kind of important to get that out of the way. So on the left here is the social media 101 soft versus solid metric examples. So like soft metrics would be like fans, friends, followers, members, readers, visitors, comments, likes, shares, and she also has them for branding as well, like conversations, mentions, sentiment, redemptions, as opposed to the hard metrics, which are conversions, sales, savings, revenue, lifetime values. So what do you think? Do you think soft metrics or vanity metrics has a role in judging how you're doing in measuring your success? And we're going to put this over to the panel, and we're going to start with I'm going to start with Randy. So Randy, what do you think? First of all, let's hear your definition of vanity metrics, and then what role does it play in our business marketing strategy?
Well, I think my definition of vanity metrics would be, as you just said, it's what you what we all realize in the social space. It could be a like, it could be a reshare, it could be a retweet, or something that we've shared with our community, and somebody gives you a thumbs up and engages with it in some way. So I think that's a vanity. I think those soft metrics, as Brooke calls them, are extremely important. But I caution and say that I think a lot of people get too caught up in the soft metrics as a sign of success and trumpet that to a disproportionate way in how it relates to what you mentioned as the hard metrics are revenues and sales, conversions, and we can step back a little bit just a couple of years ago when and I think it's still going on today. I don't only have to go back a couple of years, but it's easy to buy likes, it's easy to buy retweets, it's easy to buy fans and things like that, and so-called experts or whatever in the area have done that. We find it all the time. So if you see something, just let me bring this home. I have a very small community that I engage with. When I write in my blog, I know that there's a handful of people that I share with. When I get a comment or something like that, that's fine. If I look at retweets of when it goes out, just the total number of retweets, I got to dial that back and say, well, yeah, I get a distribution of that, but how many of those inside my community actually took time to read that? And it's a much smaller number than that number of saying, oh, I got it retweeted 500 times or 50,000 times. So that's the reality of what the metric is. Trumpeting the 5,000 retweets when you really only had about 1% of that engagement, that's where it gets lost a little bit.
Okay. BL, do you have a reply to that?
Yes, I think we have. I was muted. I'm sorry. I think we have to start with taking a look at who your following is on Twitter. First of all, the vast majority of people have followers who are bots, have followers who are not real people. So I think that it behooves you to use software like Stats Social, where you're able to examine your Twitter following and be certain that you're being followed by humans. And I think it's far more important, I would agree with Randy in that it's far more important to have a number of people with whom you engage than it is to have a huge number of people. I definitely agree with that. Where I diverge is in the thought that these will not necessarily lead you to sales, because this is not direct marketing. So this is something that happens over time, and if you are sharing quality content, engaging over time, then it will lead to sales. It is definitely a matter of keeping track of where your traffic comes from, and each platform is different. Whereas, in 2000, when I started blogging, I might have gotten, 100 comments on a blog post. Now, if I get 3, I think that's a lot. But I do get a lot of retweets on occasion. I've had sometimes something retweeted 800 times as opposed to 2 or 3 times. I have to believe that that post that got retweeted 800 times, and in some cases more, had some type of impact on my reputation. Equally so with clients. So I think the answer is that it starts out with making sure that your followers are actual people, and most people don't do that because they're so enamored with the idea of big numbers. That's baloney. And, there are some really big rock stars, and they were pointed out in the article that Randy notes by name, and I'm not going to do that, because they're my friends, but, where more than half their followers are not real. So I think we have to start with, what numbers are we looking at, and are they realistic?
Well, as Brooke said, if it's all about size, then you're doing it wrong. But I want to bring up something that Eric wrote, because when you're saying those signals can lead to sales, I think it's how it does that is part of the question as well. And Eric Enge, who we all know is the SEO guy, he says effective social media campaigns can impact your SEO. While direct social media traffic is usually not a strong driver of direct sales, SEO certainly is. And of course, SEO is impacted by the quality of the content, so it's causational, it's correlational in the sense that if you're doing good content and it is acted upon, it's liked and it's shared, then that's going to be the content that Google is going to say is valuable and wants to bring up in search results. So it's kind of correlational that way. What do you think?
Can I say, I'd like to jump in and say, I also think it depends on which hat you're wearing in your business. Because if I am wearing a branding hat and I'm wearing my strategic positioning hat, I might look at all these metrics very differently than if I am in the engagement group, where I'm looking to build conversations and make new connections internally and externally within the organization, which is going to be very different than what my sales team is, or when I actually get a lead, what does that look like from my company, and how do we act on it to get to the conversion. So I actually think that this is a good starting point, but I don't think this is that we can group this for an entire company. I think we have to look at it based off of the hat we're wearing when we're taking an action, and how something that we do in our content marketing affects our strategic positioning, which affects our sales and every other part of the business on the admin side and on the front-facing side.
I'd like to go back to one thing that BL said, and just kind of make a comment about it. And she talked about when several years ago when she first started blogging, she used to get a lot of comments and maybe lengthy comments on her blog, and now it's not as much. But I think we've changed. I think you can attribute that her audience. Her blogging audience has certainly grown, and we always lose, we have attrition and gain and stuff like that. But I think that we have changed, and not only have we changed in how we interact, but those long form stories and things like that have kind of waned somewhat. You still have a core of people that love to read that and engage, and they'll bookmark it and go back to some long form. But we are, as Mark Schaefer coined, overburdened with content shock, and there's so much out there. And two, the audience of the BLs out there, the bloggers, has grown a vast amount over the last several years. There's a huge upswing in podcasting now. Everybody jumps on that wagon and starts pushing it. So I think that kind of feeds into what we once saw, what BL once realized on her way that she was reaching her clients. Now she's reaching them in a different way.
I agree with that, and I also want to go back to something Jessica said. It absolutely matters which hat you're wearing. When I'm looking at my own following, I'm looking at it with a different view than I am in client following, because I am trying to drive sales for my clients. I am trying to drive a different type of traffic for my clients than I am for myself. For me, I want to be known as an expert in content marketing. I want to be known as an expert in online strategy. I want my clients to be known in a different way, because what they need are for people to come to them who may become their clients. So, but it is not something that has a simple path. None of it has a simple path. It's all of a piece. You know, you can, Twitter's not a strategy. Google Plus is not a strategy. A blog is not a strategy. All of this has to come together. So, you know, the metrics have to be a combination of everything that you're doing online. And I think you ought to add a little advertising to the mix these days, because if you don't, you may find yourself toiling in obscurity, and nobody wants to do that.
I love that, BL. That's cool.
I'll just bring this up because I think BL may have done this earlier as well. Is that Sally Sue Ember says, I check every single Twitter follower and block all bots or anyone selling followers and do not follow back if I can't verify a real person who owns the profile. And you know, that's part of the whole thing. And I think we saw a lot in the early days of social media when likes were basically currency, or you know, this digital currency. You know, it was all about, oh, you know, we have to get a Facebook page up there and start and get as many likes as possible. And then people used that when they gave their quarterly report to the business, saying, oh, look how many likes we got in the last quarter. You know, well, I think we've matured hopefully since then and realized that you can't take likes to the bank.
Right, and but we can use it to measure the health of our business. We can use it to see what our consumers are doing, because even if they're not buying from us, if they're buying from our competitors, we now can see that. All of this is transparent. It is an amazing research tool. Everything
it is, but it's not. Is it a metric, right? It's an indicator, but not a metric. I would
say, you know, it would depend on the behavior. I mean, if the behavior is a buy, what is my competitor doing to get them to that landing page compared to what am I doing to get them to that landing page? I think you can actually make improvements and expand what you're doing based off of what research you're doing. So I think you can use it as a research tool to find hard, concrete data about your competitors, about and what they're doing in general. I mean, people stalk us. We should be stalking our customers a little bit.
We certainly should. And you know, I really think that Eric's point about social media impacting SEO is enormously important. But what marketers are forgetting about, and this is really important, is that neither Facebook nor Twitter are indexed in search. So really, if you're looking for SEO value, you really need to be looking at Google Plus and LinkedIn and your blog and your website. And you know, a lot of marketers have a lot of eggs on their Facebook page, and I think they're missing a big point there.
Well, that brings up a whole different topic that we should do sometime, because we can go. I was thinking I actually have the topic of the whole video Facebook thing for a show coming up, because that opens up a whole new world. And I think Facebook's goal is always to have people stay in that walled garden, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas Google's strength is that it is no garden. It's the internet. So whatever happens on Google Plus doesn't stay on Google Plus. It goes everywhere that Google presence is felt. But let's get back to metrics, because I want to find out why. I would like to see what you think about why we're so attracted to them, why we use them, and one of the reasons I thought maybe because that was a promise we made with social media, was that was what you get back from investing in social media.
Well, you're right, Ray. That's why we do it. We as marketers, as the social media marketers came to fruition, and some have died out and some gone on and some have done very well with it, but we promoted that. I mean, that's what it was based on.
I almost see it, Randy, as a hostile takeover of social media by marketers and companies and brands.
Well, I mean, marketers screw up every damn thing they touch. I mean, that's what. I mean, you know, we're gonna squeeze every bit of juice out of the turnip we can. You know, that's what we do, and then we move on to the next, you know, row of turnips. But that's what happened. We sold it, and we went out and told people, and I use we, you know, loosely, but that, hell, man, you've got to get a big audience. You've got to gain this. You've got to look at retweets. Look at this. Grow. Oh, all right, what happened? The growth of people selling bots and fake accounts just overran people were invested, and still. She's right. I mean, I perused mine. I hacked out 95% of my account one time because I just started over because I was so filled with bots and things like that. But you know, you have to pay attention to that. The average person out there is not. They're not paying attention to that stuff. The average person out there is going about trying to promote or find a way that they can get word out about their product or service, and they look to us to help them do that. And that's why, and talking about, oh, well, we get you a Facebook page or we'll get you a Google Plus page and you'll get this many people in your circle and all that. Well, that's easy to do. That's easy. We all know that's very easy to do.
But this comes back to something that's been an argument when I ran a PR firm. You know, what the clients wanted was clippings, and lots of them, and they had these things called what were they called, mat services, where, you know, you could be in the Northeastern Podunk Times, and that would count as a placement. You know, where I always felt like, okay, well, if you get into the New York Times, that's a placement. If you get on the Today Show, that's a placement. So I've always felt that quality is much more important than quantity, but unfortunately clients drive that obsession with quality.
That's very true. That's what I bring
up. Problem.
Karen, just responding to what BL said earlier about not realizing that Facebook and Twitter were not indexed in search while LinkedIn and G+ is. Yeah, the Facebook is more difficult, is more restricted from Google. However, Twitter's opening up a little bit, so there is some indexing in Twitter, I understand. But what you when I was asking earlier why we are so attracted to those metrics, obviously there is the vanity, there's the validation aspect of it, but there is a role for social signals, and that's social validation, right? If someone opens up a post that you share and there's 65 likes and 45 reshares, that gives you a bit of, you know, validation, I guess I'll use that word again. But from Brooks' article again, she says that 80% of U.S. client-side marketers measure the effectiveness of their social content with social media metrics such as likes being the most common. That's amazing, and that goes to what Bale just said about clients basically, you know, bringing this mantra forward in terms of that's what they want to see, because they don't understand, I think, the back end of it in terms of how it relates to SEO and being found.
But I'll tell you what, I'm going through a learning curve.
Oh, sorry? Who was saying? I can't remember. I got two people there. Who was saying?
Go for it, Neil.
This goes back to our roles, and part of our role is to educate our clients. And I think that when we talk to clients, this is an important thing that we need to have conversations with them about. And people are afraid to say it's not the big numbers that matter.
Well, it goes back. It's all impressions. I mean, what BL was talking about in the old PR days, they're looking at measurement of impressions. So if you appear in the community or the lifestyle section of the New York Times, you know, you take the readership of the New York Times, and there's a factor that you can measure the impressions. Do you say, okay, there's 5 million subscribers to the Sunday edition, and I'm just pulling that number out, of the Sunday edition of the New York Times, so I got 5 million impressions? As a marketer, we go, yeah, you got 5 million impressions. But the truth
No, then we say there's pass-alongs.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's you know that's what paid our bills for forever. The problem that you've got with it now is that you can you're start a person is easy. It's easy for a person to get impressions now if you base it on likes, shares, and retweets. It's very easy to do that, and they can see the real number. Whereas before, you went, well, there's so many New York Times going out, and they just kind of relied on that. Now you can they can look at the hard metric there or that soft metric and see it. How do they correlate that back to a dollar in the bank? That's the overlay that you have to look at.
You know, I was having a really good heart-to-heart yesterday with David Kutcher about stuff that I'm doing in regards to SEO, and I actually said to him, I said, you know, I'm pretty sure this is not as hard as I'm making it to tie everything that I'm doing back to my SEO. I think I'm just doing everything in my power to avoid it. He asked me 3 questions, and he was smiling by the end because he says, you know what, Jess? You are avoiding it. And I think most of us are, and I think we get stuck in this vanity metric because we don't want to go deeper. We don't want to take the time to actually look in the mirror and look in our eyes and actually see what is there reflecting back at us. And so that's something that we really should consider to take it because of what, you know, was just being said by Randy. It's so easy to get impressions, but what we're doing with those impressions, how do they help our business? How are we leveraging our time? What are we doing to choose projects and prioritize how we choose our internal projects in addition to how are we learning to support our clients? All of that can be done by tying those 2 pieces together.
Yeah, they don't stand on their own. Right,
No.
I believe those metrics are an indicator if you're on the right side. If your content is being acted upon, if it's being received, if it's being shared, that gives you an indication that you may be doing it right that way. It doesn't give you an indication of the level of success you have in terms of what your business goals necessarily, but it's more I think it's more a KPI than an ROI.
I think that's a key point, and what Jessica just said is a key point. And I said at the beginning, they are a valued indicator of looking at what you're doing, but as Jessica said, you got to be real. Okay, just don't take a gross number out there and throw it. And that's what we've seen. That's what, you know, in a trending on Twitter or something like that, you can get exponential thousands of views. I mean, be realistic about those numbers and don't just throw something out from if you're being true to your client. Be true to yourself, you know what we are, and I think just like BL said and one of the guests said, you know, they check about bots and they clean all that. We're all aware of that. We've all been stung or educated ourselves to realize that, and we're truthful with our own numbers. But when you start educating your clients, and I think that's what started the vanity. Everybody wants to look good, and it's easy to get somebody up on a social platform and to get some likes and to get some views and to go, look what I'm doing. You know, then after a while, what I've experienced in the past, after a while they start asking a question. I'll go, you know, I'm spending a lot of money here, but I'm not really seeing anybody come in from that. So, I mean, that's the reality.
Well, Randy, I think that those of us who do know that we need to look at the followers and make sure that they're real, those of us who do understand this are not the norm. Unfortunately, that is not the norm. The norm is the people who say, look at these numbers, and you know what we're talking about here is nitty-gritty stuff that really matters. That is not what you find in the self-appointed social media gurus who number in the hundreds of thousands.
Well, and let's just talk about all of our learning. You know, we like reshares, but you know, I've had people tell me that you have to. You, like on a Twitter stream, you have to be in that Twitter stream like 4 times an hour. You know, you got to be putting that much content out constantly, just feeding it. And that's, you know, that might work for some people, but it doesn't work for the average Joe out there. So to make a blanket statement like that about a tool, about a platform or a tactic, just it doesn't work across the spectrum of marketing or sales.
You know, it also depends where the client is in their use of social media. When somebody is just starting, yeah, you got to put out a lot of content, and you have to make sure that you're engaging on a very heavy basis. But, you know, 4 times an hour, that's a little insane. But, you know, it really does depend on what it is you're trying to accomplish. And again, I want to say, Twitter's not a strategy. You know, YouTube's not a strategy. None of these are strategies. This is all about integrated marketing. And when you put these all together, then you have a strategy.
Well, and you touched on something earlier, BL, about BL and being known in the space. And I think the metrics, the soft metrics, are a way to establish one's social proof out there, to build up. As long as you're creating content, if that's what your goal is, you're creating good content and you're truthful, that is a measurement of your social proof in the space. And somebody can take a look at that and say, well, what have you done? You know, where let me see your footprint. And you know, that's so there is some validity to that.
And that's the word I was looking for, Randy, was social proof. So I just want to bring this up before we go to our takeout section. Missy J asks, is podcast the best way to market in terms of social media or SEO? It's one way, and it's an increasingly popular way. But I think, as Randy was saying, it's about content. So however you want to deliver that content is fine, as long as you're providing content that people want, that need. You know, that's helpful. That's addressing their questions. So you can do that by podcast. As I say, it is increasingly popular, or video, which is busting this year, or blog post, or Instagram. Any way you want to deliver your content, make it helpful, and then you'll do well on SEO. So let's go to the lunch takeouts. Let's start with, I don't know, Scott has been very quiet, so let's start with Scott.
I have been quiet, but one of the things I've been thinking about is the ultimate vanity matrix might be how much clout a person has. And it just happens to be that our own Randy Bowden did an interview with Mark Schaefer, and clout, according to the world of Mark Schaefer, is a brief excerpt from one of the shows that Randy had done a while back. So that's my takeout.
Thank you, and Danny Brown's in the audience, and I just think I felt him twitch there when someone mentioned clout.
Yeah, to stay relevant, you know, you write a book about a product that goes away. So
you saw me twitch too, because I can think of a less relevant metric than clout.
So let's go. Well, speaking, I think I have Vivek. Is that Danny's? Okay, let's bring this up. Marketers like to use reach as a client metric because it sounds impressive. Instead of having to be restricted by real actionable data, reach can be used instead. Yeah, it's a drug, right? It's that crack thing. It's easy and it feels good, but then the effect dies off very quickly, and then you have to get more. So BL, your takeout.
I found the motherlode of useful tools last week in a post by I'm looking for his first name, by David Portnoy, and he called it his insanely large list of SEO and other useful resources, and there is not a tool or an area of marketing that he doesn't cover, and with great resources. I really seriously, and it is insanely long, he wasn't kidding, but I seriously suggest that you examine these tools, and I will spend probably the next 3 months going through these tools to see what their validity is, but there were many on there that I didn't know about, and I pride myself on understanding what the platforms are for various types of measurement.
Oh, that's super. Thanks a lot. Jess?
So I'm all for Vanity Metrics. I think they make us feel good. I think they give us a starting point, and I think they open up the door for conversation. And you take those Vanity Metrics and you figure out what are the actions for your business. And so I found a pin on Pinterest that links to a white paper that revolves around 3 questions. Measure what matters the health of your business, measure customer behavior, not intermediate steps, and measure macro metrics to pinpoint improvement and expansion opportunities. So there are 3 things that I think, you can really take that and go, okay, now I can have this conversation. Maybe that's how I get in the doors with my Vanity Metrics. But let's go deeper. Let's figure out what we can do so we can be real.
Thanks a lot, Jess. Let's see, Randy. I'm totally lost here. Go ahead. I lost my order.
I on Vanity Metrics, I read an article this morning. I'm gonna give a hat hat tip to Danny Brown. Pointed it to me. That's where I picked it up. I'm just going to place it in the events page. The title of the blog post is R.I.P. The Death of Social Media Rockstar. It is authored by Howie Goldfarb. I think anybody that reads it will get some enlightenment.
That's very well put, Randy. Thanks a lot. My takeout, let's see, I'm going to grab it for you here. My takeout is, first of all, I suggest everybody go to that Eric Enge article, and I'll put that in the event page. It's very, very good. And I'm going to just highlight this mark. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it comes from his article, Why Engagement Does Matter as a Social Media Metric. And just to wrap up, he says, the smart marketer never relies on any one metric, but takes into consideration interplay of many different factors. And that's it. I mean, nothing, if I've learned anything since being in this space, is that nothing is an either-or situation. It's always a plus, this and that. And the trick is, how do you integrate them and use them and judge which is, more relevant to your goals. Vivek, you had something to say.
Yes, it's a bit sad news, but let me do a quick screen share. I had a friend, Corinna Shepherd, with whom I used to host video blogs every week, and sadly she passed away end of January. And the reason why I bring that up here is because two people, or rather three I should say, who are in the lunch bunch, were involved in video blogs with her, Scott Scowcroft and David Leopold. So it's a sad loss. I feel as if I've lost a sister, but that is life. So.
Well, that is sad news, and our condolences, Vivek, to you and Scott and David and her loved ones and her family. So with that, it's the end of episode 64 of the Lunch Bunch. Exciting conversation, because I didn't know a lot about Vanity Metrics and how they fit in, not coming from an advertising background as much, and so I learned a lot today, and hopefully you did as well. So stay tuned. Next week should be an interesting conversation. I think we talked about a possible topic, and I'll let you in shortly about that. At the end of the month, we have a special guest. We have David Amerlin joining us to talk about SEO and semantic search, and he just is coming out with a new book on very concrete steps on how you can improve your business using that. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.